You must understand your words are not harmless. Every time you speak, you're giving away a piece of your internal force, a drop of your drive, a fraction of your fire. And when you speak carelessly, constantly, endlessly about your dreams, your problems, your plans, you are bleeding out your energy before it has a chance to become form. Most people don't know this. They think talking is harmless, that it's therapeutic, that sharing every update, every thought, every feeling is part of the journey. But it isn't. It's a trap, because every time you open your mouth without purpose, without intention, you're scattering your momentum across the wind. That's not how champions move. Champions speak with precision. They speak when it moves the mission forward. They understand that energy is currency and words are one of the fastest ways to spend it. Talk too much and you bankrupt your discipline. Announce your plans too early. Your hunger gets satisfied by the illusion of progress. Your brain confuses praise for results, and you stop short of the finish line. You see, what separates the builders from the dreamers is restraint. Most people are addicted to the temporary high of being seen. They'll tell the world they're starting a business, launching a project, transforming their life. But once they say it and people nod or clap or comment, they relax. The fire weakens. The urgency dissolves. The mission dies. A slow, invisible death. You were never supposed to give away your blueprint before you built it. The greatest creators in history worked in silence until there was something undeniable to reveal. Thomas Edison didn't publish status updates from his lab. Henry Ford wasn't asking the crowd what kind of car they wanted. Andrew Carnegie didn't hold conferences on his next move. They all understood something that modern society has forgotten, that silence builds pressure, and pressure creates power. When you keep your vision to yourself, it grows sharper, it becomes sacred. Your mind doesn't waste time explaining it, builds it, experiments. It fails in private, adjusts in solitude, and strikes only when ready. And when it does, the results don't need a speech. They're self-evident. There's a reason why some people talk about success for years and never arrive, while others just arrive. And the world takes notice. It's not luck, it's not timing. It's focus, and focus is only possible when you stop leaking energy through unnecessary words. Discipline begins in the mouth. Most people associate discipline with action, waking early, grinding, pushing. But real discipline starts with silence. It starts with knowing when to hold your thoughts, quotes, when to let your intensity ferment inside instead of escaping through talk. The most dangerous version of you isn't the one who announces every idea. It's the one who moves without warning, without noise, without the need to explain. When you speak with intention, every word becomes a tool. When you speak without it, every word becomes a hole in your focus. And too many holes, even small ones, will sink any ship. So ask yourself this: are your words building your life or bleeding your momentum? Say less, move more. Let your silence become strategy and your execution become proof. Because when energy is preserved, it compounds, and when it compounds, it becomes power. And when it becomes power, the world moves not because you asked it to, but because it must. Validation is one of the most seductive forms of distraction. And what makes it dangerous is how invisible it is, how easily it disguises itself as ambition. You tell yourself you're just sharing your goals, just being open, just keeping it real. But underneath that surface, there's often a hunger you haven't fully confronted. The hunger to be validated before the result exists, and that desire can quietly kill the very fire you're trying to build. Napoleon Hill said, "Tell the world what you intend to do, but first show it." But too many people invert that idea. They talk first over and over again, as if saying the words will manifest the result. And yes, belief is powerful, but belief is not noise. Belief is quiet. It lives in how you show up when no one is watching. It lives in your rituals, your patterns, your discipline, not in applause. External validation is a silent addiction. And like all addictions, it feels like a solution. While it actually deepens the problem, you post your new routine, your new goals, your transformation. You get likes, you get praise, but with that praise comes an illusion of progress. Your mind tricks you into thinking you've already won something. And so the edge blunts. The urgency dies because you've already felt seen, felt praise before you've earned anything. There's a principle in psychology called substitution satisfaction. When the brain gets the feeling of achievement just by talking about the goal, not doing it, just talking, in the moment you give your mind that substitute feeling, the pressure to act dissolves. It becomes optional. That's the death of momentum. That's how mediocrity gets disguised as movement. The greats move differently. They understand that silence is not weakness, it's strength under control. They don't need to broadcast every move. Why? Because they are anchored internally. Their identity is not up for vote. They're not asking the world to agree with their path. They already committed to walking it. When you constantly seek validation, you give your power away. You outsource your self-belief to other people's opinions. And if those opinions ever change, and they will, you crumble, you hesitate, you question yourself, not because you were wrong, but because you never truly stood alone in the first place. But when you cut the need to be validated, when you learn to be your own witness, your own standard, your own approval, you become untouchable, you become free, because now your growth isn't dependent on applause. It's not shaped by opinion, it's driven by something far stronger: purpose. And here's the deeper truth. The people you're trying to impress are often not even paying attention. Or worse, they're projecting their own fears onto your dreams and praise you think is support. Sometimes it's pity, sometimes it's disbelief masked in politeness, and sometimes it's just noise. Empty, disconnected, not worthy of steering your path. That's why the path to greatness is often quiet. It's lonely. But that silence, that solitude, that's where the real work happens. That's where your character is carved, not by applause, but by persistence without witnesses. You don't need the world to believe in your vision. You need to believe so deeply, so completely, that the world has no choice but to follow once the work is undeniable. So stay silent, not because you're hiding, but because you're building. And when it's time to speak, let your results do it for you. There's a reason the most powerful people in history moved in silence, because true power doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need to. It doesn't scream to be noticed or prove anything. Power, real power, is quiet. E.T. walks into the room and shifts the atmosphere without a word. And that kind of presence is built not from performance, but from internal alignment, from mastering yourself so deeply that the world can't help but respond. When you're constantly speaking, constantly broadcasting your plans, opinions, and next steps, you create an echo chamber of noise around you, and that noise drowns out the still, calm voice inside, the one that actually knows what to do, the one that isn't looking for attention, just direction. And here's the danger. The more you speak before you act, the more you teach your mind to substitute talking for doing. Napoleon Hill often emphasized the power of organized thought. He understood that clarity of purpose breeds power, but clarity requires quiet. It requires stillness. A mind that's always leaking energy through the mouth never has the force to build anything solid. Every word you speak about a dream, not yet realized, is like taking bricks from the foundation of that dream and scattering them in the wind. You feel good for a moment, then wonder why nothing's taking shape. You don't need to share every move you're making to prove you're making progress. That's a fear-based reflex, the belief that if no one knows, it doesn't count. But here's the truth. The most meaningful progress in your life will happen when no one is clapping. The work that changes you won't be captured in a photo or posted with a hashtag. It will be in the early mornings when you rise while others sleep. It will be in the discipline no one sees, the restraint no one praises, the decisions you make that no one understands until later. When the results speak volumes, the silence you maintain is not a prison, it's a forge. It's where your mind becomes sharp, where your focus becomes dangerous, and where your inner conviction strengthens beyond public opinion. Because once you stop talking so much, you stop leaking your vision. You stop allowing doubt to creep in through the cracks of external feedback. You become unshakable, not because the path is easy, but because you are rooted. People talk the most when they're uncertain, when they haven't yet built the internal proof of who they are becoming. But once you've built that, once you've made quiet promises to yourself and kept them over and over again, you stop needing the world to understand. Because you've already seen the vision in your own mind, lived it in advance, rehearsed it in the silence so thoroughly that reality is now just catching up. Silence isn't the absence of activity, it's the presence of power. It's the inner alignment that makes outer results inevitable. It's the invisible work that produces visible greatness. So guard your dreams, protect your process. Don't trade long term results for short term recognition. You were not born to be loud, you were born to be legendary. Let your silence build the pressure and let your success be the explosion. When you speak before you're ready, you give away the leverage that silence could have built. Every time you prematurely reveal your goals, your next big idea, or the battles you're fighting, you dilute the emotional intensity that's meant to push you forward. You spread it too thin. The energy that should have been funneled into execution ends up scattered in conversations, opinions, and reactions. You hand over a part of your inner fire in exchange for short lived validation. There is a reason why thinkers like Napoleon Hill emphasized controlled enthusiasm, a rare and powerful force. Not unbridled emotion, not scattered excitement, but focused internal energy, held back like a coiled spring until the moment of strategic release. Most people don't realize the value of withholding. They mistake silence for suppression. But silence isn't about hiding, it's about strengthening. It's not denial of your ambition, it's the discipline to refine it. Think about the most influential architects of human progress: Carnegie, Ford, Edison, even Lincoln. Their defining breakthroughs didn't happen in the noise. They emerged from quiet persistence, from strategic restraint, from countless hours of vision building in solitude. They weren't distracted by the need to explain or defend their moves. They were too busy making sure those moves counted. Greatness, after all, isn't created in the echo of applause. It's built in the silence that most people avoid. Silence is leverage. It creates mystery, it generates momentum, and it keeps you unpredictable in a world that constantly wants to label and box you in. When you remain silent about your growth, your goals, your struggles, you deny others the chance to place limits on your progress. You avoid premature influence. You protect your path from those who can't see the destination, and more than that, you protect your mind from the subconscious effects of too much exposure. Because every time you speak your plans out loud, you invite opinions. Every time you share a vulnerable goal, you invite resistance. And while some of that may be constructive, most of it is noise, well meaning noise, perhaps, but noise nonetheless. And over time, that noise starts to shape your decisions. You begin adjusting your vision to be more palatable to others, more acceptable, less risky. And before you know it, the dream has been domesticated, tamed, made safe for public consumption, but it's no longer yours. The most powerful dreams are the ones no one sees coming, the ones forged in silence, protected from the weather of other people's thoughts. These are the dreams that grow deep roots. These are the lives that carry weight, because when they finally emerge, they're tentative, they're undeniable. You don't owe anyone a play-by-play of your progress, not because you're secretive, but because you're sacred with your energy. You understand that momentum doesn't thrive in the spotlight. It thrives in motion, in silence, in commitment behind closed doors. And when the time is right, when the work has ripened into results, the world will see, not because you told them, but because you became the evidence. So preserve your vision. Don't broadcast your becoming. Grow quietly, build deeply. And when you finally step out, it won't be to prove anything. It will be to take your rightful place among those who didn't speak first, but one. Let them wonder, let them question, and when the time comes, let your life answer. There's a quiet force that operates beneath all true achievement. A discipline not of action, but of containment. The ability to resist the pull of external validation is the measure of how seriously you take your vision. Because when your drive is real, when the thing you're building lives in your bones, you don't need the world's applause to keep going. You've already committed, and commitment, real commitment, doesn't beg to be witnessed. Most people fall into the trap of thinking their journey needs to be seen to be valid. They confuse visibility with value. They think if no one is watching, nothing is happening. But that's a lie. The ego tells the truth. The most transformative stages of growth are the ones no one sees. The rewiring of thought, the killing off of old habits, the rebuilding of inner architecture. All of it happens in silence and obscurity, and that's where it must happen, because that's the only place it's real. When a tree takes root, it does so underground, invisible, quiet, not because it's weak, but because it's getting ready to outlast the storm. In the same way, your silence is not a sign of smallness, it's a sign of maturity. You've stopped announcing and started building. You've stopped proving and started becoming. This is the realm where future greatness is born, not in the noise of declarations, but in the solitude of devotion. Now, let's be clear. There's nothing wrong with community or sharing progress when it's done from alignment. But when you speak prematurely, when you share before something has fully formed inside you, you invite fragmentation. You dilute the power of focus. You give people the chance to shape your dream with their fears, their doubts, their limitations. And even if they love you, even if they want the best for you, they may speak from a place that is unprepared to support your transformation. So what do? You protect your space. You train your mind not just to think independently, but to value independence of thought. You develop the self-trust to know that your intuition is enough, that your next step doesn't need to be validated to be real, that your hunger doesn't need an audience to be holy, that your silence doesn't mean you've gone missing. It means you've gone deeper. Because here's the truth, nobody owes you recognition, and you don't owe anyone a broadcast. This journey, this brutal, beautiful path of self-evolution demands solitude. It demands sacred space. It demands your willingness to do the work without applause, to move without maps, to become without confirmation. And if you can do that, if you can resist the urge to narrate your becoming, then when you arrive, you will arrive whole, not fragmented by opinion, not shaped by praise, not shaken by rejection. You will stand rooted in something the world didn't build for you and therefore cannot take away. In the end, silence is an absence, it's preparation, it's the space where the ordinary dissolves and the extraordinary takes shape. And if you can hold that silence, if you can honor it, embrace it, and trust it, then what you're building won't just be good, it will be unstoppable. Stay grounded, stay focused, stay quiet until the world has no choice but to hear you without a word. Silence, when practiced with purpose, becomes one of the most profound tools of alignment. It does something no amount of external input can do. It creates inner clarity. And clarity is power. Not the kind of power that demands attention or dominance, but the kind that radiates from self-ownership, the kind of power that doesn't shout, but moves mountains because it is grounded, focused, and undistracted. When you stop telling everyone what's happening in your life, you reclaim your energy. You stop leaking power through the cracks of casual conversation and begin containing it, refining it, sharpening it. Every word spoken about a dream before it's ready is a withdrawal from the vault of your inner certainty. And certainty must be protected if it's to mature into reality. You see, when you talk too much about your plans, something subtle begins to shift. You start to experience the illusion of progress. Your brain gets rewarded not for execution, but for disclosure. You feel as though you've accomplished something by sharing it, but nothing has actually moved forward. The world doesn't reward intentions. It rewards follow through, and follow through thrives in focused private discipline. There's a reason the most disciplined minds speak the least about their ambitions while they're building. They understand that every external conversation becomes internal noise. Opinions creep in. Doubts begin to echo the purity of the vision. Once sharp and undisturbed, now must wrestle with the residue of someone else's interpretation. Great builders don't let that happen. They keep their vision sealed until it's unshakable. And that takes maturity. It also takes trust, deep trust in oneself, because silence is often misread. People may think you've stopped dreaming, that you've lost momentum, that you settled, but that's only because they mistake stillness for stagnation. What they don't see is that beneath your silence, a fire is being stoked, a storm is gathering, the roots are digging deeper. You must understand this. Silence is not a void, it is a crucible, a sacred container where your future self is forged. Every hour spent in quiet intention, every morning where you resist the need to explain yourself, every decision made without validation, it all compounds. And that compounding becomes unstoppable force. Napoleon Hill wrote of the mastermind, a coordinated harmony of thought and purpose. what he didn't say outright, but what you begin to realize the deeper you study his work, is that you must become your own mastermind before you can ever attract others into your vision. That level of inner harmony is only possible when your energy is not scattered, when it is aligned through silence, calm, discipline, and action. Eventually, there will come a time when you no longer want to speak too soon. You'll recognize that the more sacred the dream, the more protection it requires. You'll see that your greatest leverage comes from not telling the world what you're doing, but from letting the results speak for you when the time is right. Because when results arrive after a season of silence, they don't need explanation. They command attention, and the person who built them quietly, deliberately, without applause, stands as someone the world can't ignore. So hold your tongue, not in fear, but in focus. Reserve your words, not in secrecy, but in strategy. Let your life become your loudest voice. And by the time you speak, you won't need to prove anything. You'll simply be undeniable. Let your silence make the noise they can't ignore.